there's an awakening across the board. And whether it's the industrials or the family offices or the sovereign wealth funds, some entities are literally pulling as much metal as they can off the exchange without causing a force majeure. And I think it's a trend that we'll see increase.
This is Dunnigan Kaiser, founder of Liberty in Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver dealer with Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized, private service from one of the oldest and best respected companies in the business. 30 years strong, A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, 0 complaints, licensed and bonded, insured delivery or vault storage or IRAs, excellent prices, privacy and confidentiality, pay by check, money order, ACH or wire, satisfaction guaranteed. Call me directly at 419-819-9209 or my associate at 310-562-6400 or email us at kaiser@milesfranklin.com. Welcome back to Liberty in Finance. We have a returning guest. Andy Schectman is the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. He joins us from his new digs in Florida. Andy, thanks for joining us this Tuesday, May 4th, 2021.
Good to be here. It's Cinco de Mayo, my wife's 50th birthday tomorrow, and the furniture comes to our cavernous home that echoes without anything in it. It's got high ceilings in the room behind me, so hopefully you can hear me well, and it's good to be back, Dunnigan.
Well, we're here. Glad you're here for the weekly market update. There's certainly been a lot of peak interest in this past week because we went through the weekend of SilverSqueeze 2.0, and I understand that's not just a one-day event, which was marked specifically the anniversary, May 1st, of the Silver Smackdown in 2011, but it's also the start of a next leg, a next inning in the sustained unfolding pressure of the little guys against the big guys, David against Goliath, and the Wall Street Silver guys started a nationwide billboard campaign, I understand, yesterday, and May 3rd, and trying to get millions of impressions out there so people are aware, get the word out, get the people aware that there's an aspect of freedom and I guess fairness, open markets, and everything that comes from people getting involved at that level. We wanted you to give us an update because a lot of potential investors and current investors are watching this market closely at this time, and they're wondering, what does this SilverSqueeze 2.0, what's going to play out? Is it just going to get ground into the dust by the heel of the powers that be, or is the little guys going to actually have a chance here to assert themselves and have reestablished free markets?
Yeah, I think it's there's no question. It is David versus Goliath. If you look at all of the commodities done again from, literally just about every commodity from canola oil to gas to the grains to cattle to hogs to lumber. The list goes on and on and on. All of the commodities are signaling inflation and they're taking off, except gold and silver, the monetary metals that should be taking off. And it's the same battle that we've been facing for a long time. But the difference this time, Dunnigan, is that there is a mounting resistance, if you will, a mounting awareness catalyzed by groups like the Wall Street Reddit, Silver. These folks built a 70,000 strong following in just a couple of months. It's remarkable. And they're tireless in their efforts. And it's not just here in the U.S., it's globally. So as I said last week, I think it was on your show, I didn't believe that this would be the match, if you will, that lit the fuse, because the dealers were prepared. But I think that there was a lot more interest on both sides of the table here for this particular week. But what it is doing, it's bringing an awareness into the industry that we've never seen before. And when you look at what's happening to all of the other commodities and to the inflation and the money supply, it's just a matter of time before the silver price really accentuates and the gold price. And you can evidence that in my book by the tremendous number of ounces being pulled off the COMEX right now. That to me signals that the sophisticated money, the big money, is taking possession, and they're doing so in a way that's very unusual, as we've talked about for a while now. The deliveries off of COMEX is a relatively new phenomenon. Normally only a very 1 or 2%, small percent would stand for delivery, and now we're seeing enormous amounts delivered. If we look at what happened in March and what will happen by the end of the May contract, we're looking at somewhere 80, 90, 100 million ounces delivered between the two delivery months. That's just enormous. And that to me signals the biggest money in the world is doing exactly this. So it's not just the little guy. There's an awakening across the board. And whether it's the industrials or the family offices or the sovereign wealth funds, some entities are literally pulling as much metal as they can off the exchange without causing a force majeure. And I think it's a trend that we'll see increase, which bodes well for the price ultimately. But, you know, it's frustrating. I understand. It's frustrating to see silver move up $1 yesterday and down 50 cents today. It's the 2 steps up, 1 step back. This is the same thing we've been fighting, but there's never been this type of an awareness, this type of an understanding around it. And so for that, I'm quite optimistic, Dunnigan, and I think that we will see an environment that if this continues, where we start to see more of an encroachment into the mainstream, which very quickly will, I think, you know, maybe change things for silver and gold to follow all the other commodities, not just languishing in the background as everything else takes off, and the two items that should be going higher aren't. I think that'll change.
You made me think when you mentioned about silver getting public awareness about my brief stint here, a little over a year as a bullion dealer, and how last year in second quarter during the market crash with COVID and everybody feeling like the world was going to pot, you know, all of a sudden there was quite a few gold orders. Gold was on a lot of people's mind. They wanted to flight to safety, and in the last month or two, it seemed like that it's predominantly silver. That's just the norm, the default that people call me about. And it doesn't matter on the age either. It doesn't matter whether it's young people or people on the behalf of their children or grandchildren, or whether it's people that are at later stages of life, they're asking about silver first. Still some people asking about gold, but I'm wondering what you're seeing. That's my very limited exposure. From your seeing in your vantage point, the ratio or the shift of demand at the retail level between silver and gold over the past several quarters.
Yeah, I mean, most of my career it was all gold and very little silver, and this is a new phenomenon. I would argue probably 90% of our sales or more are silver. The majority of every phone call or every email or everyone calling about anything is silver. Very little, if any, about gold. It's actually kind of surprising. I would say it's 90% or better, and last year it was at least that for the entire year of 2020. So it's definitely, people realize that the value in silver, this is nothing new to all of us, but what is new is an awakening into the group of people that the Reddit people have tapped into that are awakening the same value. And a lot of it has to do with cryptocurrencies, where there's an awareness with cryptocurrencies. It basically acts as a short on the dollar. And I think you have a lot of people who are looking to dollar alternatives, and because of what's happened with Bitcoin and all of the other cryptocurrencies, they're now actually taking a look at silver. You don't find the same type of dynamics in gold that you do with silver, which potential-wise could mirror what you see in cryptocurrencies. And I think that's why you're getting more of an interest at the younger level.
Yeah, actually, we're actually seeing a connection there where people who have made a killing on cryptos are calling up and saying, do you take cryptos in payment for real metals? And we say, yes, we do, through BitPay. And that just keeps some people very interested. The fact that they can have had that windfall come their way and now roll it into something real that doesn't just evaporate overnight.
Exactly. And that's a great point. And I think people should keep that in mind, in that pulling some money off the table in realizing that profit's not a 4-letter word is a great idea as it pertains to crypto. People need to keep in mind their exit strategy in cryptocurrencies. And I think this is a good way to do it. If you're able to convert to Bitcoin from some of these altcoins where you made a really big profit, switching them into precious metals and taking some of that profit off the table is a great idea.
That same basic principle holds true with other asset classes as well. You've talked to us before about the Ibbotson study that says, unlike all previous decades where you could count on the bonds to be a hedge against your stock market, or you could count on real estate to be a hedge against the stock market, now we have what everybody's calling the bubble of everything, except for precious metals and some other commodities that are just starting to move. I've got, again, my personal testimony, I've had multiple multiple real estate owners who own multiple houses, multiple apartment buildings, saying that they are selling properties, and they do not feel comfortable putting the proceeds of those sales and just into cash in the bank. They want to hedge that and to protect it in metals. So I have a number of people who are taking either their stock profits out of 401ks or IRAs into metals, or selling real estate at this rich valuation of the market and rolling that into metals. I guess that reminds me of what you were just saying about cryptos.
Yeah, I mean, there's never been a time where you have all three of those markets in arguably in bubble territory: the stocks, bonds, and real estate, which are a function of manipulation of interest rates. I mean, people talk about the manipulation in gold and silver, but really it's about manipulation of interest rates. The low interest rates have created an illusion of wealth in our 401k and our house values. And now with, the only people that are taking advantage of these low interest rates as it pertains to the market are the big hedge funds who get the money at next to nothing and pump up the equity markets or invest in real estate and rental properties. And you see markets that are way, way over leveraged because of this type of an environment where you have low interest rates and you have easy money, and the big money is getting wealthier because they're taking advantage of it. The lending standards are so difficult right now that the people who need it really aren't getting any lending help, and you see very little velocity as a result of it. And that ultimately will change. I mean, Warren Buffett, when he started speaking at his last shareholders meeting, he started out by saying hyperinflation is here and pointed to all of the commodities that are rising. We're not seeing it yet broadly, but when you see what you just talked about, where all of this big money starts pulling their money out of their second and third home, the investments, or pulling it out of the equity markets because they realize that ultimately interest rates have nowhere to go but higher. So you might as well cash out at the top. Remember, profit's not a four-letter word, but when all of this money gets pulled out of these investments in cash and heads up, I mean, now you're going to start to see some substantial inflation. And where do you put your money in that environment? And especially if you're older, the older folks may have no intention of ever going into cryptocurrencies. There are very few places to do it. Here again, I will argue this market will identify itself by the inability to readily source product. And in that environment where you see a bunch of people pulling out all of these years worth of profit in search of somewhere to put it safely, I guarantee you a lot of it's going to go into precious metals, and like that, it'll disappear. So that's a catalyst right there for you to see not only massive inflation, but also the disappearance of physical product in the United States.
You just made me think of one thing, that when clients talk to me and they're just trying to get their feelers out to understand what's the pricing structure, how does the payments work, all that kind of thing, it's quite common that I'll have one or two initial conversations with them, and then they'll say, okay, I'm going to circle back with you in a week once I get my stock sold, or once I get my closing is in 2 weeks or whatever, but they're just trying to figure things out. And when I tell them what I'm about to say, the first 2/3 of it, they go, yeah. And the third part, they go, oh. The first part I say is, I need you to know that everything we looked at today, the spot price is subject to change. Oh, yeah. And the premiums are subject to change. Oh, yeah. And the availability, those ounces may be gone by the time I talk to you next. And they go, oh.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, because the difference is that before it didn't really matter. That wasn't a conversation you'd ever have because you want $5 million worth of some product? Okay, fine. I'll call the distributor and have it here in a couple of days. That's not the case anymore. And so what you're saying is very true. And, I guess it's easy to see how someone who didn't know me could say he's being disingenuous. He's just trying to get people to buy stuff and create a panic by saying product won't be available. But, look, there's 6 major mints of the world. There's U.S., Canada, South Africa, Austria, Australia, and the United Kingdom. That's it. When those mints run out of product, it's game over. And so could it happen? Yeah, I think it really could. I think that we'll come to a point where as people start looking to protect themselves from the ultimate and I think inevitable decline of the U.S. dollar, there are very few places to do it. And the difference between cryptocurrencies and gold is that Gold has been valued as wealth for thousands of years, anywhere and everywhere, and it's portable. It's a lot of these things are available. The portability is probably better with cryptocurrencies, but it's universally recognized, and it's a hedge against just about everything that we can think of. I mean, precious metals have outlived 2 world wars and German hyperinflation and the Great Depression and every pandemic and every market collapse and every change of political regime, and they're still valued as wealth. All I can tell you is that if these things happen that a lot of people think are going to happen, enough to where they decide they need to purchase precious metals, then yeah, there's no question about it. Availability will be the first thing I think that people will look at this market and realize, geez, it's impossible to get any. And then they'll start looking to other things like mining shares or whatever it may be. But singularly, as a business, it's the single hardest thing that we have to do, and it never was at all. It was always maybe the 10th or 20th hardest thing to do, logistics being much harder. Getting product right now literally is a full-time job. 2 people working 12-hour shifts, one in the middle of the night and one in the morning to hedge and to purchase and to talk with distributors all around the world. I mean, the whole thing, it's changed a lot, Dunnigan, and I think it will mark this market.
That's one of the things I've noticed. Some people, some fairly, I guess, experienced, but I would even say cynical people making comments under some of our interviews saying, oh, notice all of the dealers are talking about how hard it is to get stuff, but you can find stuff if you look around. I've got this dealer, that dealer, and they have some stuff. I don't think there's an appreciation of how difficult the work is, the scrambling. Reminds me of when I was in the hospital and the nurses had a poster up. It said, be like a duck, calm and unruffled on the surface, and underneath paddle like hell. So it's like the client doesn't always realize how hard it is to try to provide something on the shelves for them to buy.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, we talk about it a lot. I have a bad habit, I guess, of talking about the same thing over and over and over again. I realize that, but I think that I like to harp on the things that to me are the most important. I think just about everything else is you can work around, but if there's nothing to get, then well, that really is all that really matters. And there have been several times where I have been very concerned that we just don't have anything to sell. And I think we have we've had a better approach to the supply chain management for the last 15 months than just about anyone in the country. We're fortunate to have a good amount of supply that is live right now, and more on the way. But I'll tell you, we have somewhere in the neighborhood, I know we have 40,000 Krugerrands right now that just came in. I know that we have somewhere in the neighborhood of almost 100,000 kangaroos that will be in over the next 2 weeks, most of which have already cleared customs. But, mind you, when I bought those kangaroos, when we bought those, we're talking February, roughly. So, and you have to pay way, way up front, and you have to pay large premiums. And these are things that never happened before. Before I met you, before COVID, Dunnigan, it would be a phone call, and 72 hours later, you would have the product. And those days are literally long gone behind us right now. And, the U.S. Mint is another example. I swear they have not made anything, it seems to me, in weeks. I mean, there's been virtually nothing coming out of the U.S. Mint, and we talked about them shutting down. I don't know that they officially did, but I'll tell you, there's virtually no product coming out of the U.S. Mint right now.
So you mentioned the relative and temporary, at least as far as we know, who knows, availability of Krugerrands in quantity, in stock, and you had given me a hint earlier that was going to be part of a weekly special. Can we go ahead and let people know what the weekly special is from Miles Franklin for this week?
Yeah, we're going to do this in appreciation of the SilverSqueeze movement. And, it means a lot to me. It means a lot to me, not only to, I guess, selfishly be associated with a group that is waking up the younger people for the first time in my career, which has given me a renewed vigor, a renewed confidence in people realizing that this is wealth and this is money. I don't look at it as an investment. I look at it as wealth. And I think that's one of the things that I hope that the folks at the Wall Street Silver Group will teach this younger generation, that this isn't about getting rich. It's about preservation. You can get rich in cryptocurrencies. You can take some money off the table and put it in wealth and gold and silver. You may do real well in it, but it'll be wealth in the year 3000 when the dollar bills in our wallet are hanging from a frame in the Smithsonian. Yeah, we're going to offer those at $5.50 over the price of silver for I think we ought to be able to do it for the entire week. We have 40,000 of them in stock, and I think that'll be the best price in the country, as far as I can tell. It is, and that's any quantity, $5.50 in appreciation for SilverSqueeze Week, doing what we can to get as much silver in people's hands.
Well, we'll make sure and put a picture of that up so that people have that. We'll put the description of it in the video. Folks, if you give us a call at 419-819-9209 or 310-562-6400, we'll take care of you and make sure we get you whatever quantity you're looking for of those. Andy, if people want to find out more about what Miles Franklin is up to, where can they go?
Well, they can either reach out to you. Certainly, I'm so honored to be associated with you and your family. It's such a joy and pleasure and a great honor. Or they can email us at info@Miles Franklin, myself personally at Andy at Miles Franklin with any specific questions. And I hope they do. I hope they reach out to us, and we'll always be happy that they did.
Folks, if you want to make sure that you don't miss a single interview with Andy, any of the specials that he offers, make sure you go to libertyandfinance.com. That's our homepage, libertyandfinance.com. Put your name and email address. Click subscribe to our free newsletter. It's all free. Comes out at least 3 times a week. It'll be coming out more often now that we're going to be publishing almost every day. And all of Andy's interviews are in there. All the weekly specials are in there every single time. And you won't miss a single issue if you go to libertyandfinance.com, put your name and email address, get on our free email list. Andy, as always, on behalf of all of our viewers, just want to thank you for joining us for this weekly market update on Liberty and Finance.
It's always a real pleasure. I look forward to it every Tuesday, and I look forward to coming back next Tuesday. Thanks again, Doug. And again, you stay well.
This is Donegan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver dealer with Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized, private service from one of the oldest and best respected companies in the business. 30 years strong, A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, 0 complaints, licensed and bonded, insured delivery or vault storage or IRAs, excellent prices, privacy and confidentiality, pay by check, money order, ACH or wire, satisfaction guaranteed. Call me directly at 419-819-9209 or my associate at 310-562-6400 or email us at kaiser@milesfranklin.com.